Don Mazzella here for Small Business Digest. We have an extraordinary guest today, someone that I'm looking forward to talking to, Dr. Gilda Carle. I'm not going to say anything else about her except to welcome her to the program and first ask her a little bit of her personal background, then what she does, which I think you'll all find interesting, and finally a website. So, Dr. Gilda, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Don. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm a media coach. I'm a relationship expert and media coach. And these days, I have been very upset watching people who are in businesses trying to present themselves on what is now television and become television stars for the first time in their whole life. And and they're so frustrated. It just hurt me so much. So during the pandemic's height, I sat here and instead of writing my usual relationship books that sell wonderfully and they're all on Amazon, I instead put all of my knowledge, and I'll give you my background in a moment, into a new book that I had written called Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand, because I wanted to save people from themselves as they were getting out there and presenting themselves, because we all know that the way you present yourself, especially during the pandemic, was determining their raises and promotions. And people in their companies are looking at them and assessing even the colors that they are living with in their home and their decor, and more than they're paying attention to sometimes to the information at hand. So it's a very interesting time that we've been going through, and since I had the background, I said I've got to do something to help people. Now my background is that I have been in corporate America, going in as a consultant and doing media training. Before that, I got started as a teacher in the South Bronx for years, and I started doing relationship counseling after that. And then I got a PhD, and I became a professor of communications and teaching how to present yourself. And I also have had and continue to have individuals that I work with and coach now more than ever online internationally. So a lot of the people in some of these countries want online help and coaching, specifically because they don't want the media to find out that they have gotten this kind of help and coaching. So it works out to my benefit and to our benefit, so that I can talk to clients in Europe or in South America or in Asia very easily online, and their people have no idea, and their media people have no idea that they have been getting this kind of counseling. So it has worked out beautifully. I've been teaching MBA courses, as I said, doing exactly this work, working individually with executives of companies and their entire staffs. And I have been going into small companies also, and giving them the tools that they need to communicate better and better and better, because we all know the bottom line is the thing that we're aimed at. And unless you can package yourself in a way that is so compelling, people are just going to turn off, because our ability to sit still and attend to anything these days is less and less and less. And the average person sits and listens, like a windshield wiper. Bang, bang, it's over. and and we have got to understand that first. And I spend a lot of time in the book, in it with my clients, talking about their listeners, because it's never about you. And if somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'm so nervous, okay, that's great, it will add to your adrenaline, but you have to understand, if you are nervous, you're not emphasizing the right thing in your life. It's got to be them. Your presentation has got to address their pain points. So, what else do you want to know? I lost your voice. I don't hear you.
Right. Your website?
Oh, very simple. drgilda.com. drgilda.com.
Well, that's easy to remember.
Yeah, very
Well,
simple.
let's start. Our audience is primarily small business,
Right.
but um, I'm going to start. I had someone on the program, a very nice senior, senior executive from a major Midwestern bank, and he spent the entire presentation looking down.
Oh boy. Well, okay. I have this three-part uh, process that I talk about again in the book. I talk about the three-part process. First, you must establish what I call an dialogue. You have an eye contact association that glues you to the other person. So you start with an dialogue, then you have a dialogue, meaning the two of you are interacting in a dyad, or the two of you or the 20 of you get into a dialogue. And then finally, you do the monologue. The monologue is the last. And it's so interesting because you see so many of these speakers talking all monologue, and they go to events and committee meetings, and they're online doing their working from home, or however they are, whatever platform they're using. And they're always talking about themselves and what they can do. Nobody's interested in that unless you establish some kind of rapport from day one, from moment one. So this is essential. Dialogue, monologue in that in that way. It's a
Ah,
pyramid.
dialogue. I love that word. I have not heard that before.
I made it up.
Okay, well, it's a great word because it's so true. Most people, I always go by Eleanor Roosevelt's great line. She judged people by how long it took them to use the pronoun I.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so good. That is so good, because when you establish your relationship, even if it's momentary, you talk about, oh, the weather is so bad. The traffic was so difficult to get to you, et cetera, et cetera. And you look for common bonding between the two of you. Once you have that established, you're saying, this person is a paisan. I understand. Okay, now we're on the same page. Then you can say, well, how was your traffic getting here? How did you get here? Did you use public transportation? Did you use your car? Did you? And now we're establishing who each other is. And at that point, you are priming them to hear what you have to say that can help them. And let me point this out. Nobody would listen to us, and this is in the book, nobody would ever listen to us unless we felt that, unless they felt that we were giving value to them. That is essential for everybody who's watching this should understand. Unless they feel they're getting value from you, pack it up. You're not there to give a sermon to anybody. If you're in small business or even large business, But if you are in a small business, what drives you is bottom line. And that's the most important thing. So they're not interested in hearing, do this, don't do this. Here's what you have to do. Here's what you don't have to do. Nobody's interested in that. They want to know that you are individualizing your coaching for them.
Hmm. That's so true. It's taken me many, many years to understand that.
Well, I think that most people don't understand this, and you're not alone. Uh, most of us, most of us take a long, long time to get over the hurdle of terror in front of an audience. Most of us think, "Oh my God, I'm shaking. I'm so worried." Well, guess what? It ain't about you. It's about them and what you can give to them. So it comes from a really sharing kind of point of view.
Well, you don't subscribe to the idea, imagine that they're all in their underwear.
Yes, that's been around for many, many years.
So
There
have I
are,
been.
that's right. Well, these days I tend to stay away from that as a even as an image because some people have been wearing their underwear online as they were as they were delivering their messages to their companies, and then all of a sudden they have to get up and get some water, and you see them, they forgot that they were wearing their underwear, and it's very embarrassing.
Well, that's very ironic because I just changed before this thing, and I almost came down to do it in my underwear.
Well, I would have told you a thing or two about that. That is a dangerous situation to get into, Don.
Well, no, my wife wouldn't let me. So what can I tell you?
Good wife.
Of course, I wouldn't be around without her. So, well, you're the expert. Let's go back now and your website again and your books. Before we go any further.
You know what I can do now? This is one thing that we have the opportunity to do, and everybody should understand this. Watch this. Um, let's see. Here we are. Okay, so let's do this, and um let's put that on. Okay, you see now, because we have, that's the book that we're talking about.
Yes.
Amplify your media presence, amplify your brand. And because we have the ability to do this on Zoom, we can very easily sell what we have to sell. But you have to be careful because there is no perfect green screen maneuvering. We kind of look like, I raised my hand and I look like an amoeba. So you have to be really, really careful about using that at times.
Well, let me ask you. People argue you should have a purple background, a green background, blue. Um, do you believe, besides having the background like I do, that's our book. That's our book, and you have your book.
And
But
that's my book.
some people say you should have a blue background or green, and that the color, and that you should not wear black, and you should not wear red, or are there rules that you kind of suggest,
Well,
or
I've
to help
spent
people look better on?
one one of the things that we didn't even talk about is that I have spent 2 decades on television. And Fox even did a pilot for the Dr. Gilda show. So I have loads of experience with presentation, presenting yourself on air. And what I have found, if any of your audience ends up on air, please watch the show first and look at what the background looks like, because you don't have control over that background, that set. So be sure if you see that the background is a bright orange, be sure that you are not going to wear a bright orange top because that will clash and that will upset the audience. Also, you have to veer away from little tiny prints because they tend to bleed on air, and you have to be very careful about that. You want your people to listen to your content, and yet your words only count whenever you are making presentations. Your words only count 7% of the impact that you're making on people. So that if you are trying very hard to make an impression and using the wrong buzzwords, for example, that have nothing to do, for example, um, if I were talking about, oh, being in big corporate America to you, who's talking about small business, that would be the wrong thing to do. That would be the wrong buzzword to use. But if I am talking to you about small business, I have a much better opportunity to present myself in a way that you will receive the information. And information that is not received is going to go on deaf ears. And there goes your entire presentation.
That's
You know,
that's wonderful.
but it's also very interesting that we know this has been studied. You have 3 seconds to grab their attention and 5 seconds to keep their attention. Now, that's not very much time when you think about, hello, my name is Dr. Gilda. I mean, when you say that, that's your 3 seconds used up and even more. And then 5 seconds. So it's a matter of grabbing, maintaining, and making sure that they will attend to you for at least 30 seconds, which is the average amount of time that our commercials are. So we have become very well groomed in understanding that after 30 seconds, I can't be bothered paying
Yeah.
very much attention anymore. So you have got to get your information out. And this idea about coming out to speak to anybody personally, one-on-one, or make presentations online, the idea that, well, I have to warm up first, give it up because they're out the door. I mean, at least if they're not physically out the door, they're emotionally out the door. And all your hard work in trying to make the presentation goes out the window. So you have to understand the basics of how people listen or don't listen. You have to know. And then, I created something in the book that I give out to my clients. Let me show you. The audience analysis sheet. I give this out to my clients. You may not see, this is the problem with green screens.
Yes.
You may not be able to see it all that well here, but this is your audience analysis sheet. It is in the book, and I specifically made it so that you take that and you make copies of it. And in that, I ask, what is your objective? What is the size of your audience? What are your audience demos and the group memberships and their knowledge about what you're going to say, their opinions of what you're going to say, their knowledge of you, and their opinions of you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, their values, their beliefs, their knowledge of the subject. You must know this before you even get started saying, hello, my name is Dr. Gilda. Before you do that, this is your homework and you must be prepared with it. And these days, because people's minds wander and we know so much about the listeners, people's minds wander, and you are going to have to recaptivate their listening ability, because most people listen like this. Oh, I'm interested, not interested, turned off. Then all of a sudden you mention a buzzword, grab them back, and it's, oh, I'm interested. Oh, I'm tired of listening. You can't expect your audience to sit at the edges of their seats and listen to every single word that you have to say so intently, because they can't physiologically do it. They get exhausted. So you have to provide for that so that they don't. I mean, you're dealing with, let me just put everybody's minds at ease. You know that you have been called upon because of your expertise. If you don't know that, I am telling you now, remember that. It is essential for you to remember that. It is essential for you to understand your own gifts and your own abilities and the reason they called you in rather than John Q over there. Because you know you have the goods. All you have to do is package them. And that's what I help people do. I have helped people package in major corporations and in small businesses. It doesn't make a difference. Learning the skills of packaging yourself so that you are at least heard, and then people can then act. That's your objective. Act on. Now, whether that means buying something that you're selling or buying into an idea that you are presenting, it doesn't make a difference. It is up to you to make that so interesting and so worthwhile. You're going to go out and do what you need to do. And people have paid me and continue to pay me thousands and thousands of dollars here in a little book. You get it on Kindle is $9.99. In a real copy, it's like $12.99. I mean, you don't have to spend anything. And then I'm always available for questions you may have. But this is the way to go now. You can't afford not to have this skill set. I've been working with some political figures here in Arizona, and it's always the same. Some of them say, well, I don't care if I'm ever on television or whatever. And I say, oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. If your objective is interesting enough or controversial enough to make people think and to push people over the edge to make them vote for you, you want to be in as many platforms as possible.
How true. How true.
It's a different world. We don't realize some people do better on Twitter. Some people do better on YouTube. Some people do better on live television. Some do better on radio. I mean, there are so many. Some people have radio shows and to do podcasts with radio shows. However it works best for you, we find the way. We find where you're most comfortable, and then we have to make that push. And you can't be, and you have to do this, and you language is a turn off. Humbleness is a turn on, but you have to have the mix, because people, if you're talking about a leader, people want leadership. If you're talking about buying a widget, people want to know what it has that will add value to us.
Um, but isn't it true that the toughest part of anything is getting across to other people your message?
Well, yeah, and people spend, it's so funny because when people come to me, they say, well, here's my speech. I worked on it like a dog. I have spent so many hours on this speech so that I could present it, and I'm going to memorize things. First of all, never, never, never memorize anything, because in times of major stress, you know what
You
happens.
forget it.
Oh my God, I forgot this. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? And you cannot be so dedicated to your notes. And this happened to one woman. I wasn't working with her, and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry we hadn't worked together first." She wanted a career as a career politician. And then the wind came. She was outside, the wind came, blew her notes all away, and she looked as though she was fumbling. So, do you think she had a career in politics after that? Never happened. So, everything, all of these things are totally preventable. And that's why we work. It's not just a simple, well, I'll work with you for an hour and you'll be perfect. This is, I mean, when we're doing political campaigns or when I'm going into a company, uh, you know, I have to sit there and talk to them about the strategy they're using as well. It's not just, well, when you say this is a buzzword for that audience. When you say that, raise your hand and do something that's interesting. No, no, no. We're also talking about strategies, because if I say X to this group, I may inadvertently negate the people who are on my side from the Y group. And you have to know, when I do major planning in big companies, we find that we need a team of people who know the community and who is going to be positive towards this and who's going to be positive towards that. I learned a lot from working in big companies. And then when I went into small companies, I mean, it was a piece of cake because the skills are the same. You could be selling pencils, but you have to make sure that your buyer understands this pencil is going to provide value for you that you did not have before. How could I not buy it?
Dr. Gilda, we only have a minute left. Your book again, and what would you like to leave our audience with?
Amplify your media presence, amplify your brand. And you can always get me at drgilda.com, drgilda.com, and ask me questions. But get the book, because you can't afford not to have it.